Hey, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Rising Tide Leadership Podcast, where we simplify the complexities of your leadership journey. My name is Mo, and I'll be sitting in the host chair today. My guest is Stacey Bullman, co-founder of I'm Not Mad at You, a company of partners with leaders who are tired of endless theory and they're ready to move quickly. Stacey and her team specialize in industries ranging from construction all the way to robotics to marketing. And the results are eye-opening. Stacey, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mo. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. So let's jump right in. I love the name. I'm not mad at you. That's exactly how I thought of it when I read it. And it feels like there's a story behind that. So can you tell the audience what it means and why you chose that as the name for your leadership work?
Sure. There are a few stories after we've been now running the company for 10 years. But the original story was I was about 13 years old. I had cheated on a math test. I had missed a week of school actually for being sick. I was an elite tennis player and I had missed school for about a week. And when I went back to school, I took the makeup test and I cheated on it. I got the correct answers and cheated. And the teacher was smart enough to have changed the answer key around. So I only ended up getting one question correct. And the teacher clearly knew I had cheated. So she gave me direction to go and tell my parents that they knew I had cheated and they were aware of it. And they would write a letter acknowledging that I was going to get that score on the test. And that was a consequence of cheating. So my father was the typical disciplinarian. My mom was sort of the lovey, nurturing one. So I was coming from practice. My dad was picking me up and I had played a great match. And he's walking back to the car with me and he's feeling, nice and like a lovey dad, So I'm like, this is the time to tell him. So I tell him that, I've cheated on the test, and he very quickly just kind of put his arm around me. He's like, listen, the most important thing was that you told me. I'm not mad at you because you told me. And we'll deal with the consequences and you're going to get your score and I'll write you the letter. And we're not even going to tell your mom. We don't want to worry her. We don't want to worry her and have her stress out about this. And I think we told her like 5 years later when I got to college. But yeah, that was sort of the intro with my dad, and I had done something wrong. I think a lot of times when you're that age, you want to compound the problem by continuing to stay in the lie. And I let him know and he wrote the letter. And from that point on, I continued to cheat. That didn't stop me from cheating on tests, but it did teach me, I think it was probably the first I'm not mad at you moment. I probably didn't recognize it at 13 years old, but it stuck with me. It always has. It was most important. Tell the truth. You tell them what you've done. And then, I'm not mad at you. So I took that and have run with it. Now in the consulting, it has taken on a whole other life. We're usually coming into companies, we're consulting them. They're usually doing something wrong or there's areas of opportunity and we have to be blunt because we care about time and we cut through the clutter, as you said. So time is of the essence. So we're pretty honest. And when we see opportunities, we tell our clients that we see the opportunity and ideally they're not mad at us and we're not mad at them. We're just trying to solve the problems and be better. So that's the story. And it comes into play daily. As you can imagine, it's certainly an attention getter. So it's something that we're proud of. Now, at this point in my life, 10 years into the company, it's how I try to live my life. I mean, ideally being mad doesn't serve us. It only really, as I say to people, when you're mad, the only person you're ultimately hurting is yourself. To be fair, like you're the one giving yourself the high blood pressure. You're the one giving yourself the anxiety of being mad. Like mad is really only a state that affects the person. While we think it's affecting the other person, it's not. So working with companies, like I said, you have to come in, you have to give them stark reality. And ideally, neither party is upset with the other one. And we see it as constructive criticism and we're able to move forward and be better. And that's the only reason we do what we do. The suggestions and the advice that we give are not for us. I mean, like they don't do anything to help us. So we're going to sleep well at night, no matter what. But we do hope that we made an impact and made people and companies better. So we're not mad at them, but we do hope that they are listening and doing the things to make themselves better.
Let's talk about cutting through the clutter and the complexity. You talk about helping leaders and businesses make decisions, quote, at the pace the future requires, close quote. Yeah. That's powerful.
Yeah,
leaders today feel paralyzed by too much information, too many choices. So how do you help leaders move faster?
We use math. We use math. We use a lot of math. And I think that's something that most business owners are reluctant, or most people. It isn't even business owners, but most people, most leaders, most individuals, Math is not generally people's favorite and they avoid it. But running a successful business is, to be honest with you, looking at the math and the numbers of your business, the profit and loss statement, which, as I've seen over 10 years, it's a document that most of the owners will receive, right, from their bookkeepers or from their accountant each month. Maybe they open it up. Maybe they look at, I don't know, because I haven't found this to be a practice in 10 years of consulting, but they get the document usually once a month. Do they look at the P&L document? Not usually. What they're usually looking at is their cash flow and in their bank balance, and if they make payroll or, other variables to determine their financial health. But to be fair, for me, when I look at a P&L, regardless of the type of company or industry, it's like the horse whisperer to me. It tells me so much information. Like, are they spending an adequate amount on sales and marketing? Is there payroll? For instance, I have a client, their payroll right now is close to 70% of revenue. That model doesn't work, right? That's just math. It's not very sexy and exciting, but that's where I got them information, right? I'm able to look at their P&L and discern that they're spending 70% of their revenue on payroll. Immediately, regardless of the industry, I'm able to look at that and tell that company, guess what? It's bad news, but you got to fire somebody, right? I'm not mad at you, but you have to fire somebody. And don't be mad at me, but I'm telling you right now, as it sits right now, you are too payroll to revenue or bring in more revenue, right? Those are the two options you have. That math is all over the place in their P&L document. It's everywhere. But as I was saying, most leaders are reluctant to use that tool on a regular basis because sometimes what it says is very frightening, right? Sometimes it's staring at you and it's red. So do I want to look at that every month? Is that exciting every month? Does it resonate with the leaders like it does with me? And not always. Most of the time, no, it doesn't. That's where we like to cut through the clutter. And as I said, within 5 minutes, I can look at their P&L and tell them they need to let go of a person. That's 5 minutes. That's not 5 hours. That's not 5 days. That's 5 minutes. Cutting through the clutter. We say we work 83% faster than traditional consulting firms. Cut through the clutter using tools, tricks like that, which the Fortune 100 companies use the exact same tools and tricks that a small to mid-sized business that's running effectively is running the same way as a Fortune 100. Even though they don't think that's the case, they are.
Yeah, your track record is really impressive. 700% growth in sales pipeline, 645% net income increase. That's not theory. That's results.
Thank you.
What's the key to driving results like that without overwhelming the leaders or burning out their teams?
That document that I speak of, right? That document that I'm talking, the P&L document is the very first place we're going to go to, because instantly you can look at that document and have some of these answers we're talking about. Like, for instance, is back to, let's say I looked at the sales and marketing category and there was no dollars spent there. Don't you think I'm going to ask a question about, like, you don't spend any money on sales and marketing. How do you expect to grow your pipeline? How do you expect to, have business development when you don't have any money allocated to that, a section of your business, correct? So there's instant places you can pop in and be able to give them information. And it's not just giving the information, because it's not a matter of just telling the leader, like, okay, this is the problem. You then have to sort of tell them the steps, step 1, step 2, step 3, because a lot of times, like you said, you might be overwhelming them with, oh, you need to fire a person, you need to spend money in sales and marketing, you need to create a business development pipeline. Like, it can be overwhelming. And it's overwhelming in the sense that we do it really quickly. And I think that usually is what catches the leaders off guard. It's like, wow, she doesn't know anything about my business. She's never worked in this industry. Like, how would she have these viable questions for us, after just looking at our P&L? And I think that's the starting place for us always, is that document. If it's a startup company and they don't have history or a P&L to look at, then we sort of demand or request, or whatever kind words we use, to create a forecast. And then we shoot holes through that forecast to whether or not that's are the assumptions that they've made accurate, right? So for instance, let's say they're creating their avatar and their target customer, and they sell this widget, right? If they sell this widget and they're saying, okay, how many people might need a whiteboard marker? Well, you have to think about, like, you can use Google and ChatGPT these days to help narrow down some of those numbers. To be fair, I probably could ask ChatGPT, how many whiteboard markers are sold in the market, right? How many whiteboards are sold? Then I can assume each whiteboard has about 2 to 3 markers per whiteboard, right? Then I assume I'm selling it in this geographic area. How many people in that geographic start going that? Then I know, okay, that's 25,000 people that I potentially could sell these markers to. And I'm only going to sell to 0.05% of them. There's my math, right? So I got 0.05 of 25,000 people that I can realistically think are going to come buy that marker from me. Does it cost me more money to run the business, to make those markers and to sell those markers than it is in what I can realistically get in that percentage of the market share I can get? It's all math. And it's not people's favorite thing to do. Math in the United States is not our strength. And business owners traditionally are not mathematicians, right? So it's never sexy when I tell people this is all about math. And I have a degree in marketing. I spent 30 years in sales and marketing for the Fortune 100 companies, and they don't like my answer. Everybody's like, math? Ugh. In fact, it's frustrated me so much in the last 10 years that I've looked up different things. People are 7 times more likely to talk about sex than they are to talk about math or their financial wherewithal or their financial status. That's wild. That's wild to me, but it's true. So oftentimes when I'm asked, what's the biggest issue? I'd say it's sales and cash flow. I don't care what anyone says. If you have an operational problem, guess what it's going to end up being? A sales problem, right? Any problem that any leader has ever come to me over the past 10 years and said, I have XYZ problem, it ends up being a sales problem. So I'm always ultimately fixing the sales problem, even if it's our staff doesn't get along. Well, you know what that's going to be? They're not going to produce enough. And then that's going to be a shortfall in the sales side. So we focus on the math, no matter how sexy or not sexy it is. And we know no matter what, as you just said, if we focus on the P&L, we will be valuable to our clients if we are moving that needle in the correct direction. If we're not, we're going to tell them it's not working and you probably should fire us. For real, because it's probably because they're not listening. To be totally honest with you, we can come up with all the solutions and we can create all sorts of strategy, but it is incumbent upon the leader to execute against the strategy. And even if we tell them step 1, step 2, step 3, they still have to take the time to execute. So most of the clients that we work with don't hire us to come in and do, I'm not their sales, I'm not their sales manager. I am a fractional marketing officer now, but really what we do is we're a soundboard. They come to us, they speak to us every single week. We work with clients where we speak to them weekly because that gives my leader, if we don't talk every week, it gives them 2 and 3 weeks to make a bad decision that maybe we cannot fix. So we stay in touch regularly and we speak to them regularly. And to be honest with you, the clients that we work well with want to talk to us a lot. Like they get to the point where they're texting us midweek, where they're touching base with us in the middle of the week because something pertinent came up and they thought like, I want the soundboard now. So we're very available. And I think that's, another reason we're effective is we make ourselves available. We don't give a course. We don't tell you to go read things. We don't tell you to go study other stuff. We're going to work inside of our client's business on day one. Not what I'm not mad at you is teaching. It's let's look at your P&L. Let's go. Let's go. Right. And if you don't have a P&L, let me look at your forecast. What assumptions have you made, the market that you think is available? And then that's where we shoot bullet holes through it. They don't like it. We're like, no. You presume there's 50,000, let's say their target demographic was females, right? And there's 50,000 females in XYZ market area. You don't have 50,000, that's your market. I mean, a lot of owners will start there, right? No. You got to back that. What's the age, right? Oh, that narrowed it down to 20,000. Then how many of these people again back to buy the markers in this area? Oh, that's only 5,000, right? You start doing the math, you start recognizing, wow, the available dollars are not maybe what I need because it's going to cost me this much money to have a store, overhead, the lights, all that fun stuff. So it's not the most fun, but I cannot I can't overstate the importance of the numbers and math in almost every aspect of the business. And then once you get running, the math starts telling you so many things. We've got an engineering client. Today, 44% of their clients are repeat clients, right? That's good to know. If you're the business development person and you're out there selling engineering services, and you're probably just a salesperson, right? What do you know about engineering? You're not an engineer. But what you do know is that 44% of the clients come back. I'm using that when I'm out, I'm using that math to go tell as a selling point. So I think that's the other thing people don't recognize. Sometimes your math will end up being a good selling point. Like some of these mathematical variables end up being things that you get to use to sell your product, to sell your service. It comes in handy at times.
Stacey, you've developed something called the wheel assessment. What exactly is that?
Sure. I did not actually develop it. So it came
Okay.
from, that's okay. I think we give credit on our website, but it came from something in the 50s. And it was called the Wheel of Life. And it was like a psychological testing to kind of figure out where someone was at in life. And they asked variables like, where are you at financially? And you would score it, from 0 to 10. I feel like I'm at this place financially in my health and wellness. And so it went through different variables. It was called the Wheel Life. I did study that because I did actually get life coach certified. I thought I should probably be life coach certified because this isn't going to just be about all my sales and business things. I'm going to have to come at this at a different approach with some of the psychological things and some of the different, ways to impact a human being. So I got certified, and this was in that training. And I was like, I'm not going to be working with people as a life coach, but I like this tool. I like it a lot. I think I could adapt it and I could assess anything using 8 attributes, right? So we just took that and said, okay, we can assess a product. We can assess a service. The leader can say, I want to assess my service and assess it on price, assess it on ingenuity, assess it on these 8 different variables. And then we go ask whatever market audience that they want to ask, about these products or services. Most often we're using it internally with the company when we go and work with the company and we actually assess the company. And the leader says, okay, I'm going to open up my staff and employees to you. You get 1 hour with each of them and do this wheel. And so we usually are doing a company wheel or a leadership wheel or a product wheel to assess one of those different variables. And to be honest with you, usually the people within an organization know the right answers. They're just not often heard. So when we go in and assess the company or the leader, we get all the answers from the staff. They tell us all the answers. They're an incredible resource for a leader. But what I also tell people is they're never going to be honest with you, and you never get to really be honest with them. It doesn't really benefit both parties to be 100% transparent because a leader has to keep certain things from the company and the staff because there has to be a presentation at times of confidence and strength. And the employee shouldn't be telling the leader everything all the time. Let's be honest, there's certain boundaries that should be kept. So oftentimes it's in that space that a lot of good information is being missed. When a third party like me comes in, asks those questions, uses a very simple tool, they don't think it's very threatening. They're like, wow, she's just asking me to score the leader from 0 to 10. And I'm not as scared of telling her the answer, right? Honestly, our leader, I'm going to give him a 4. And you know why? It's because we don't see him. We see him once a quarter. Okay, well, that's hard for that employee to say that. That's not hard for me to say that, right? And when you've heard 8 people say the same thing, it becomes really compelling to the leader to say, listen, the reason you scored so poorly in leadership as the leader and as your people said was they don't see you. You're not here. And that's just a good example. Like, people are never going to say that to the leader on their own. Never. But they're going to say it to a third party person as long as, like I said, you use something innocuous to get them to open up. The scores on those wheels don't usually matter. They're nice for a visual for the leaders to see, like, wow, like, ooh, as a company, my benefits are great, but they do not like me as a leader. It's eye-opening. And to be honest with you, most of the companies in the 10 years that we've interviewed, where did they score the worst? Leadership. But the cool thing was that typically that leader was bringing I'm not mad at you in to help. And that was the moment that the people in the company recognized we're about to change because this isn't a very invasive process that the leader has allowed for this third party person to come in, give us an hour, devoted attention with this person, and we're honest. And they do not hold back. They try. They really try. But this wheel is, like I said, it's not an intimidating tool. And as much as they come into it closed and like, I'm not going to share anything with her, I'm going to keep my distance. I've had them say that so many times. And within 10 minutes, I'm like, I can't believe I'm telling you all this. Oh goodness, I hope this is, confidential. And I said, trust me. And if it's the third or fourth person, it's not new news. And I said, listen, the best thing that I have to tell you is that this is going to make it to the leader because you're the fourth person that said this. And in fact, you've said it in the exact same way. They even oftentimes will say the same exact words. So it makes it fun to go back to the leader because you're like, listen, this is true about you. Do you know what I mean? Like, and you can change this and you're getting it fed to you again from me back to there's a middle person that can make it a little bit more palatable, but it cuts through the, like it really does. And we get good answers. The team feels like they're a part of it. a lot of times with consulting, a consultant comes in, there's assignments, or there's read this or do this, or maybe there's a survey online, right? But often you don't usually get to sit down with the person that the leader is sitting down with for an hour and tell them whatever you want. And we tell that to the leaders, like, listen, it's an invasive process. So I want you to be comfortable with what's about to happen, because they're going to tell me the truth. Someone like, I'm not mad at you gets the truth, right?
Yeah, Stacey, you say that your approach is plain talk, rapid moves, relentless practicality. That really resonates with me, because leaders don't need another leadership theory. They need something they can actually do tomorrow. So what's one thing that leaders can do this week to bring more clarity to their team?
Look at their numbers. Open up your P&L. Literally, right? I mean, being very familiar with where you're at financially as a leader is incumbent upon you, right? And just covering payroll doesn't mean you've been responsible enough. And forget the people. I look at it like a triangle. I always say that I'm not mad at you works in a triangle format. We think the company exists here, right? The company is here. Then we think the leader is here and the employees are here. We really serve the company. When we come in and work for a company, we believe we are the voice of the company, not the employee or the employers. We think we're there to save the company. So we don't really get bogged down in like, the employer's right, the employee's right. No. Whoever says things that benefit the company being successful, healthy, productive, that's how we guide and we consult. So we're not looking to take a side. We're not looking to, if it's not being run, we're not there to make people feel better. We're there to the company's health and sustainability. So therefore, again, a lot of times we say things that are brutal or, as they say, brutally honest. Back to, hopefully they're not mad at me because I didn't say it because I didn't think it would help. And if we said it, we think it's going to make a difference, or we believe it's something that action should be taken on. So we try to be sensible in that way. And when we speak, we are always speaking on behalf of the organization.
Stacey, what's one leadership myth that you'd like to address to my audience?
That's a good question. I think that it's certainly that it's weak to ask for help. I think a lot of leaders have this mentality that if I seek help, I don't have all the answers, or that's a sign of weakness. I'd say that's a myth. I mean, I think a lot of leaders realize this, but it's also taking action on, getting that help instead of recognizing you don't have all the answers. You have to then take the effort and find somebody that can help coach you and help you where you are falling short.
Yeah, I love that. And what's one encouragement that you would give to young leaders, those who are just jumping into the game?
Follow the numbers, numbers. And back to what we just said, ask for help. It's okay, right? I talked about this on another podcast the other day, but the world's best at almost everything across the board have a coach, if you're a CEO of a multinational company, you have a board and they're going to coach you, right? That person also usually has a mind coach, a mindset coach, possibly an athletic trainer. Like, they may have 3 or 4 coaches in their life. I think, back to the myth thing is that the best are getting help. It's this small to mid-sized business owner that I think has been fed this story that you're strong and you're going to go out there and you're going to conquer the world, right? And we have this mindset in that small to mid-sized business owner level where that's sort of the mindset. But at the end of the day, you're lacking if you're actually not doing some of the things that the best are doing. But that's not always things that we're thinking about when we're leading companies and meeting the day-to-day needs.
Stacey, where can my audience connect with you?
The easiest way is to find us on our website, I'mNotMadAtYou.com. There's Stacey at I'mNotMadAtYou.com if you want the direct hookup with EY. But yeah, I'mNotMadAtYou.com or Stacey at I'mNotMadAtYou.com is the fastest way to find us. We're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, all the normal places. But if they want to talk to us and get the brass tacks and a way to be better, they can find us there.
Awesome. Well, I know I got a lot out of this, and I probably need to pay a little bit more attention to the numbers. And I would say most leaders do, so thank you very much. For our audience, thanks so much for tuning in today. Please reach out to Stacey. I'm sure it'll be a great conversation. Hopefully she can maybe help you and your leadership team. Don't forget to sign up for our newsletter. It's free. We give you the good stuff. Till next time, Stacey, thanks so much. Hope to have you on again.
Thank you, Mo. Thank you for having me.
You got it.